I started out in humanities, and I studied classical linguistics, basically Romance and Germanic languages. And while I was studying, I realized I was really interested in grammar, but not so much how grammar is written in a textbook, but how people might use these grammars in the different languages, and also the question of how the brain might use these grammars. And very early on, I had the possibility to work in a project where one could look at patients, that is, patients with particular language disorders. And I was stunned when I, for the first time, saw a patient that had selectively lost his grammar. And from that on, I thought, oh, that's interesting. If somebody can lose grammar selectively, it must somehow be represented in the brain separately. An agrammatic person basically speaks in telegraphic style, leaves out all the function words, but nevertheless can communicate because the content words are still there. And like in a telegram, you don't need the function words in case you have simple sentences. However, what was interesting, you could sort of have those subjects listen to sentences, and they had to point to different pictures in order to show that they are able to understand the sentences. This was only possible when you had simple sentences that came in a canonical word order, where the first element is sort of the subject of the sentence and also the actor of the sentence. In case of a passive sentence, so like the girl was kissed by the boy, it was very difficult for those patients to figure out who was kissing whom. And while studying further, I realized when sort of thinking about how grammar is processed, I should also look at the processes. And at the time, and that was in the mid-70s, basically all those studies that came out in the literature on processing grammar in the brain were coming from psychology backgrounds. So I started to study psychology and look into how the cognitive structure of particular processes might be. And after I had finished my PhD in linguistics and I had done my diploma in psychology, I had the possibility to go to the United States, and there I was going to Boston and had the possibility to be part-time at MIT, learning some more theoretical issues, but also the possibility to work in the Veterans Administration Hospital, which allowed me to further look at patients. When I came to Boston, that is, and to Cambridge, it was very interesting because MIT had the first year of their cognitive science program. And in this cognitive science program, linguists and psychologists would sort of not only work together, but they first had to learn from each other what the other people's ideas were. And so in this context, Chomsky was also one of the major players, giving lectures not only to students, but also to teachers or professors from psychology. And the other way around, he was sitting in psychology classes to learn something about processing.